I'm Eric Tsai. I'm a content producer at TaiwanPlus. Our aim is to tell Taiwan stories to the world. 228 incident, that is February 28th and the weeks after, is one of the major historical events that has affected the course of Taiwan's history. Because of its importance, we're looking for reasons as to why people outside of Taiwan should care about it. We came to realize it's much more than 228, but history in general. Because history builds identity, we must protect and preserve that history from the authoritarianism that tried to erase it. We share our history to connect with others to fight against the injustice in the world. Why did you feel it's important for Taiwanese Americans who might be born and raised in the States to know about these stories on a deeper level?
I was in that position too. I didn't know about this history growing up. I was just really shocked to not know it, to not have heard my mom talk about it. And I think, it's our grandparents' history, it's our parents' history. That makes it our history. That is our history too. And it's our responsibility to know that history as part of the journey of knowing ourselves and to understanding the history that we carry with us. And sometimes we carry that history, we don't even realize it.
You want to be American, but I knew just as much as I'll never be Taiwanese in Taiwan, they'll never be American in America. And it sucks. It's a terrible reality. It shouldn't be the reality, but it is the reality. And what's been happening with COVID proves that. The lengths that minority people have to go through to prove their identity and prove their worth and belonging is huge. And part of understanding your history is a part of finding out who you are. So for me, Taiwanese Americans should learn about 228 because it is their history, whether they like it or not.
Knowing that history and being informed about it is also a way that authoritarianism has lost. It's lost its reach into the future. One of the goals of that authoritarian period was to erase the history of Taiwan and erase people's knowledge of what was happening in their own country. And so when you know it, then their goal of rewriting history has failed, and it continues to fail. And so I think knowing is a powerful kind of action.
To understand your history is, in many ways, a burden, but it also allows you to connect with the rest of the world. Like, the more you know about your own history and the more you know about other people's history, the better connections you can make, the more you can become empathetic, the more you can see your own personal struggle in the struggles of others, which helps you care, right? We can't care about things that we feel like don't relate to us.
One example of relating different histories to build a connection is an article published in the Black Youth Project. It connects Black history and Black Lives Matter to Taiwan history and 228. I spoke with the author, Dr. China Prescott-Weinstein, to discuss the similarities, differences, and more importantly, why she connected the two.
The police are trying to control how money is made off the sale of cigarettes. And when people don't do it in the way that the police want, that the state wants, and the state's interest in making money off of the cigarettes, then there's this deadly force as retaliation, right? So there's this disproportionate loss of life. And so I think that's a history that people in both Taiwan and in the United States and more broadly in North America can identify with, even if the moments are shaped by somewhat different historical contexts, that both situations were incidents that involved the oppression of one group.
A shared sense of pain from oppression is not a race to the bottom. It is a chance for those oppressed to come together and push back against the injustice in the world.
So there are some real substantive difference between those two things. But I don't think that those differences mean that we can't put those histories in conversation with each other and talk about the ways that they provide insight between the experiences of these two communities, these two very different and geographically spread out cultures, that we can understand why are people in pain over these incidents. That I can understand the experience that my spouse's family had under the White Terror, I can understand that through the lens of the experience that my family has had in the United States under white supremacy as a Black Caribbean, Black American family. And I think it's important for us to have that shared insight into each other's experiences, particularly right now as we're seeing a rise in awareness and visibility and actual absolute increase in violence against Asian Americans, that it's very important for us to understand how are we going to link together with each other? How are we going to work with each other? How are we going to understand that in so many ways our struggles are familiar and we should be sharing in these struggles by working together to oppose oppression more broadly?
Are there conflicts between Asian American communities and Black communities? Yes, absolutely. Are there real grievances from one community to the other? Absolutely. Right? Are those reasons why we shouldn't work together? Are those reasons why we shouldn't try to understand each other? Absolutely not. Right? It's that, again, Angela Davis writes that this stance that Martinez takes about the Oppression Olympics urges us not to engage in Oppression Olympics to create a futile hierarchy of suffering, but rather to harness our rage at persisting injustices in order to strengthen our opposition to an increasingly complex system of domination which weaves together racism, patriarchy, homophobia, and global capitalist exploitation.
I think it's valuable for historical reasons to understand what the differences are, but I think that thinking about the similarities can be really useful in supporting Black and Asian American, Black and Taiwanese solidarity.
We want to iterate that both Black history and Taiwan history are extremely complex. This comparison is a hope for a connection between the two histories and not a full coverage of either one. However, we do have a video talking about what led up to 228 and the impacts of it. Also, over at TaiwanPlus.com, we also have a documentary about the 2-7 militia in Taichung that fought back against the government. Our news team also has a whole assortment of stories. Stories about surviving family members, how the youth are remembering this incident, and much more. All this can be found on our website and app. See you around.